Welcome back, everybody. Ready for another deep dive? Today we're going deep into a passage from the Bible, Matthew 15.2128 to be exact, and pairing that with some really thought-provoking stuff from Kingdom SoulFuel on, get this, great faith.
Ooh, I like where this is going. Great faith. That's a big one.
Right. And this Bible passage, well, it's about this woman begging Jesus to heal her daughter, but the way it goes down, let's just say it might not be what you expect.
Okay, now you've got me intrigued. Lay it on me. What's the deal with this passage?
Well, before we get into dissecting it, let's just hear the thing. It's Matthew 15.2128. Reads Matthew 15.2128. So, yeah, what'd I tell you?
Kind of gets to thinking, right?
It does. I mean, we're so used to, stories about Jesus being compassionate and healing people.
Yeah.
This one feels different.
Totally. Like, what's with the silence at first and then those things he says? Not exactly warm and fuzzy, huh? What do we make of that? Well, it's tricky, right? We can't just take it at face value. Got to remember the historical context here. We're talking about a Canaanite woman approaching Jesus. Back then, that was a huge deal.
Huge, huh?
Canaanites and Jews, they didn't exactly have a friendly history. Lots of tension, prejudice, even outright hostility. Canaanites were seen as outsiders, the other. So when Jesus says that whole bit about, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel.
He's basically saying, not my problem.
Well, not in those words exactly, but he's definitely reflecting the common beliefs of that time, operating within a very specific cultural framework. Makes you think about how we all do that to some extent, even today.
True that. It's so easy to miss that stuff when we're reading these stories through our 21st century glasses.
Absolutely. And then, of course, there's the elephant in the room, or should we say the dog in the room. That part is rough no matter how you slice it.
Yeah, that comment about the dogs, not exactly the kindest comparison, you know?
Right, but again, historical context. Dogs back then, not like our pampered pups today. They were seen as scavengers, unclean. So yeah, harsh to our ears, for sure. But in that time, Jesus' words, they were rooted in a totally different understanding of things.
Okay, that helps me see it a little differently. But even so, the woman, I mean, talk about standing your ground. She's like, bring on the tough questions, Jesus, I'm ready.
And that's what's so incredible. She could have just walked away, accepted defeat. But instead, she's got this amazing comeback. Even the dogs eat the crumbs which fall from their master's table. She's not letting go.
And she's using his own words right back at him. So smart. What do you think is happening in that moment with Jesus, I mean?
I think he's blown away by her. I mean, think about it. She doesn't directly challenge him or his authority, but she subtly, brilliantly flips the script. She's acknowledging the social order of the day, yet she's asserting her daughter's right to even the tiniest bit of God's grace.
Wow. And that's when things totally shift, right? Like Jesus' whole demeanor changes.
Exactly. He goes from seemingly dismissive to total admiration. He recognizes the depth of her faith. It's not just belief, it's courage, it's tenacity. And bam, her daughter is healed that very instant.
It's such a powerful example of how much our words, our faith, our persistence, they really can make a difference. And, it ties in perfectly with that Kingdom SoulFuel piece we mentioned earlier, the one about great faith.
Oh, yeah. They were talking about how true faith isn't just blind belief, right? It's trusting in something bigger than yourself, even when you have every reason to doubt.
Exactly. Just like that woman. She was up against social stigma, what seemed like rejection from Jesus himself. But her faith, it never wavered.
She held on to that sliver of hope with everything she had, even when it seemed impossible. That's the kind of faith they're talking about, the kind that moves mountains.
Makes you wonder,
Yeah.
have you ever found yourself in a situation that just seemed completely hopeless? But for some reason, something inside you just knew it would work out.
All the time. I think we all have those moments, right? Where logic goes out the window and something else takes over. That's faith, isn't it? It's that deep down trust that something bigger is at work, even if we can't see it.
That's the question, isn't it? What do we do when faced with the impossible? Do we give in, or do we hold on to that little spark of faith even when it feels like we're all alone? This story, it's not just a history lesson. It's a challenge.
A challenge to live our lives with that same kind of courageous faith, to believe in the impossible and fight for it even when it feels like a losing battle.
So good. Let's do a quick recap for everyone before we wrap things up. We started with this really interesting passage in Matthew about Jesus and this persistent Canaanite woman, right?
And then we dug into the historical context, how that changes everything about how we understand their interaction and how those cultural layers are still relevant even today.
Right. And finally, we connected it all back to this idea of great faith, which Kingdom SoulFuel really unpacked beautifully.
It's a powerful reminder that faith, true faith, it's about so much more than just believing. It's about courage, about trusting in something beyond ourselves, even when we don't understand, even when it seems impossible.
So as you go about your day, think about that. Let this story sink in. What if we all approached our own impossible situations with even a fraction of that woman's courage and faith?
Now that's a question worth pondering.
Couldn't agree more. Until next time, everyone, keep asking the tough questions and diving deep. We'll be here with you every step of the way.